Good afternoon, Lillian. How are you?
I'm good.
Good. How was your week?
It was good.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about it.
Oh, I went to my trans support group, cleaned my house. It was really warm over the weekend, so I spring cleaned my house. And I did some of that homework that you told me to do.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, that was actually the next thing I was going to talk about, because we had set the goals for what you were going to work on the next few weeks, and one of them, why don't you tell me what ones you worked on?
Well, so you wanted me to, anytime I was feeling anxious, I was going to look at catalogs and pick out pictures of like dresses and things like that. And so I've been doing that. And then also we talked about that I could maybe wear a piece of clothing under my clothing. And that seems to work pretty well.
Great. So approximately how many times would you say that you did that throughout the week? Let's just start with the looking in the magazine at the clothing. About how many times would you say you did that?
A couple or 3 times. I found that, I would just keep a catalog with my books, and if I got to feeling anxious or whatever, then that would just kind of like take me to my happy place. So was that the feeling that you would say that you felt most of the time when you were looking at it, anxious? Not really anxious, sometimes bored. But yeah, most of the time if I was feeling anxious, that was kind of like the reason why I started to look at the catalog.
Okay. And the same thing with wearing the women's clothing underneath your male clothing? And that was for the same reasons, or do you think that you had different reasons for doing that?
Well, I think it makes me feel normal.
Okay.
I think it also makes me feel hopeful. Like that's what I'm going for. That's what I'm aiming for. And when I'm able to look at the catalog or the other exercises that we talked about, it kind of it reminds me that there's something to look forward to.
Okay.
So.
Well, good. I'm really proud of you. It sounds like you've made some good strides with those 2 goals that we set for you last week.
Well, and I worked on the 3rd goal too.
Good. So how many times did you drink?
I have not drank at all.
That is awesome.
I know. So
that is really good.
When I went home, I actually poured out my my alcohol, and I've actually been to an AA meeting.
Wow. So when we talked about that last week, you said that we looked at the change scale, and you said that you were a 2, but you didn't feel like that you were a 4. Now, if we were looking at that scale again, where would you say you are right now, since you poured out your bottle of liquor?
I would say I'm probably at like an 8.
That is really great. So can you tell me what you think made you change from a 2 to an 8?
Well, so I remember when I first came and saw you that my goal is a transition. I want to transition. And so I kind of felt that I was jeopardizing that, so that, you hadn't indicated that to me, but I felt like with me drinking or me doing these other things that that could come in between me and transitioning. So I have to remember that my goal is to transition, and nothing's going to come in the way of that. So, and it's probably not the healthiest thing, as we talked about last week. It's probably not the healthiest thing for me to do.
So that's great. So it sounds like that you are really putting your goal of transitioning in the forefront of everything else, and you're actively working towards that goal. So that's really good. I'm proud of you for doing that.
Thank you.
One of the things that I did want to talk to you about this time too, and I had actually been doing some research, is dealing with your depression that we've talked about. One of the strategies that a lot of counselors use is what they call CBT, or cognitive behavioral therapy. And I was thinking about perhaps starting to do some of that with you, or to assign you to another counselor who could work with you on that. Have you ever heard of that before?
I have.
So basically what the concept of it is that it's just kind of a way of helping you sometimes to change the way that you're thinking. so that you can kind of normalize some events that are going on in your life. And actually, you've made great steps in doing that right now, just by what you said about, pouring out the liquor and starting to think about your goal of transitioning. So it looks like you're already taking some of those steps. Mm-hmm. And we have done a little bit of CBT in some of our groups that we've had already. Does this sound like something that you would be willing to work on a little more, like maybe for the next 8 or 10 groups?
Sure. And I'd like to stay with you and do it. If I have to go somewhere else, I would just want to know that the therapist or counselor is going to be okay with the trans issue, because I really like how you're okay with it. So that's the biggest thing.
Well, I am trained in CBT somewhat, but there are counselors who deal with it a lot more than I do. So we could probably go either way with it, and whatever you feel more comfortable with. If you want to let me know, maybe next time that we see each other, and we could make a decision then as to what might be best for you.
Sure.
I'm sure the counselors that I know would be fine with with your situation with transitioning and everything. If you feel like you might be uncomfortable discussing that with them.
Okay.
So.
I'm open for that.
Okay. All right. So. Oh my.
Well, I was wondering if other the homework really worked well for me. Are there any other exercises that I can do, like when I'm feeling anxious, to kind of like breathing? Have you done anything with like breath control?
Yes, there are some breathing exercises that you can do, and actually I have a couple of videos that I could show you.
Okay.
And obviously you must know a little bit about that as well, but it's just, when you start feeling anxious or depressed, that you can start breathing, going through the exercises, and it really does help to slow you down and help you from getting really anxious. So if you want, I could go over that with you maybe next week.
Sure. And
we can use that. And one of the things that I would suggest you do too, as far as homework, would be when you start to feel the anxiousness coming on. Mm-hmm. I think if you keep doing what you were doing, looking through the book to help calm yourself down, but also you might want to think about what is causing you to feel that way at the moment. Is it an interaction that you had with someone? Is it something someone said to you? Or what is initiating that feeling that you're going through? And maybe just jot it down in a book. Mm-hmm. And then we can kind of look at that and see where is that coming from, and then is that anxiousness what's leading to your depression?
Like a journal?
Yeah, just basically jotting it down in a book. I would maybe put the date and the time mm-hmm. that it is happening, because sometimes that also affects individuals during what time of day it is.
Right.
So that might be one way.
Okay, I'd be open to do that.
Okay. Now, another thing is we're talking about you transitioning. Mm-hmm. I know that in some of our previous sessions that we haven't had a whole lot of time to really discuss that actual process, mm-hmm. because we've been trying to work on your depression and the drinking and some of those issues. So a couple things that I had thought about is as far as the actual transition process, who do you have, or do you have anyone that can help you walk through that process once you have the surgery and mm-hmm. you're starting to do all of that?
Yeah, so I've already started on hormone replacement therapy.
Okay.
And so that's already started. And I see my general physician, and he's been treating me for depression, but that was kind of, he referred me over to you, and I feel like this is going well. And then as we kind of get closer to the year mark, then we can kind of start talking about some of the more permanent, like surgeries and things like that. So in order for all that to take place, I have to have a full medical team sign off mm-hmm. on that. Yourself, my general doctor, and I think I need a couple of other evaluations, like a full psych evaluation. And I don't know if that's something that you can do, or if you can kind of refer me. But I mean, additional. When I first came and saw you, I only wanted to see you for the transition part, but I like these other things that we're kind of working on.
Okay, good.
And so, you know, even if the transition wasn't occurring, I would still want to see you for the other things.
I know that you had mentioned that the transgender support group that you go to is really a big help for you. So do you feel like that group in itself and then the medical professionals that will be working with you is enough to help you get through the process and then what's going to happen afterwards?
I think so. I mean, I think it's pretty, from what I'm hearing, it's pretty common that in the trans community that we are typically more knowledgeable than even like general doctors, you know. So a lot of things we're just talking in the group and sharing. So yeah, I mean, I don't have my family, so my friends will be my family, and I mean, I feel like I have a lot of support, the support I choose, and so that's not really a problem, you know, a problem for me that I foresee.
Okay. So I know that once you go through the process, then have you thought about the other steps that you're going to need to take and what that's going to look like on the other side?
Yeah, I've already talked with my job. You know, I work at Jack in the Box, and so they're fine with it. They said I could change stores if I wanted to, but I'm not going to. All my coworkers are very, you know, they are supportive. And then there's legal stuff like changing my name and changing my social and all those things. And they'll happen just over time.
Now, your coworkers, do they call you Lillian or do they call you Larry?
They call me Lillian.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple that call me Larry, but by and large, most of them are okay. There's always going to be one ass.
Yeah, so you think they'll be fine?
I think so. I mean, you know, just being who I am, and that pretty much demands respect when you're just who you are.
Right.
So I'm really looking forward to the transition part.
Good.
So this for me is the worst part, the having to get ready for the transition. Right. Like, I'm not scared of the transition. I'm scared of everything leading up to it.
Yeah. And the wait.
Well, I've waited, 36 years, 37 years. So.
Yeah.
But
that must be tough.
It is, but, there's, people in my support group that have waited a lot longer. One person waited 60 years.
Wow.
So, it happens, and I'm lucky enough that I'll be able to transition. So there's some people that never are able to transition. So.
That's good that you have that opportunity and you can do that. Well, Lillian, our time is coming to a close, and so I wanted to go over some of the things that we've talked about to work on for next week. Okay. I'm really proud of the way that you have worked this past week on the goals that we set, and I hope that you'll continue going to the AA meeting and staying clean and sober. That's awesome.
Thank you.
If you do have time and you can write the journal, that would be great as well. Just documenting times when you feel anxious and maybe what the onset might have been that caused you to have that feeling.
Okay.
And as far as the breathing exercises go, I will get that information for you so that we can cover that also. Is there anything else that you can think of or anything that you would like to take away from this meeting that maybe we need to discuss more?
Well, I was actually going to ask you if in our next session, if I can actually come as Lillian.
Okay.
If that would be, because as I'm trying to, transition, But if that would make you uncomfortable, I don't want to do that.
No, it doesn't bother me at all. As if you feel comfortable doing it, and I know you've stated many times that that's how you feel comfortable.
It is. Then
that is fine with me. You can come the rest of our sessions as Lillian if you want.
Well, I really appreciate that.
Yeah, it's not a problem. So.
I'm actually, I've been talking to a couple of my other trans friends, and I've been referring you.
Oh, okay.
I really like how you're very compassionate, and you seem to be knowledgeable.
Mm-hmm.
So that we kind of will pick one person, and if they really treat us well, then we want to support that one person. So
mm-hmm.
I really appreciate your help.
No, it's not a problem. That's what social workers are here for. We try to help people as much as we can.
I appreciate it.
And ultimately, our goal for you is to get you to that point to sign off for the transition, and so that you can get through that process.
Maybe I can be a social worker one day.
That sounds good. That sounds real good. Have you worked on any of the paperwork as far as like name changes or anything like that as far as the transition goes?
No. I know that I can do that. Maybe I can bring in all the paperwork for next week.
Okay.
If you'd like to look at it.
Yeah, that would be fine.
And then we can. It's just a matter of getting the paperwork and doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's not a huge, hard task, I don't think.
Okay. All right. Anything else?
No, I feel very, very, very chill right now.
All right, Lillian. Well, I'm glad that you do, and I look forward to our session next week.
All right.
All right. Have a good week.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.